Bryan Kohberger is asking for more time to establish his alibi. The Moscow Mule killer appears in court. Daniel Penny speaks. Follow up on that Trump indictment. Funny how one day I am pro-Trump, the other day I am anti-Trump. People hear what they want to hear. And then finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment, and always hit that little bell so that you receive notifications of when we go live or put up new content. And never forget, you can listen to us anytime on any of your favorite podcasting apps. So let's support the people that support Crime Talk.
As a pet owner, you want to give your furry friend the very best. That's why Baked in Colorado's CBD-infused dog treats are the perfect choice. These delicious treats not only taste great, but they also provide a wide range of health benefits for your pet. CBD has been shown to have many positive effects on dogs, including reducing anxiety, alleviating pain and inflammation, and improving overall wellness. Baked in Colorado's treats are infused with premium, full-spectrum CBD oil, meaning your pet will benefit from the whole plant extract. Not only that, but Baked in Colorado's treats are made with all-natural human-grade ingredients, so you can feel good about what you're giving your pet. They're also free from wheat, corn, and soy, making them a great option for dogs with food sensitivities. Baked in Colorado's CBD-infused dog treats are the perfect way to support your pet's health and well-being. With various flavors, including peanut butter, pumpkin, and bacon, your dog will love them too. So why wait? Head to www.bakedincolorado.com today and order your dog a bag of these delicious and nutritious treats. Your pet will thank you for it.
Let's go ahead and open the docket as it relates to Bryan Kohberger. His public defenders are asking for additional time in which to file their notice pursuant to Idaho Code Section 19-519. Well, what is that? That is the notice of alibi. And his attorneys state that, hey, since he's been arrested, the prosecutors have disclosed 51 terabytes of information. Now, I'm not a computer guy, but I do know when they say, hey, you have 4 or 5 terabytes of discovery in your case, it's a lot. 51 terabytes is a ton of discovery. So they need time in which to go through these recordings and all this electronic information, which is probably going to be phone records, social media, everything that they found on the phone. So the defense is saying we need some additional time. So what is Idaho Code Section 19-519, notice of defensive alibi? Well, it states that any time after arraignment, before a magistrate upon a complaint and upon written demand of the prosecuting attorney, the defense shall serve within 10 days or at such different time as the court may direct upon the prosecuting attorney a written notice of his intention to offer a defensive alibi. And that notice by the defendant shall state the specific place or places at which the defendant claims to have been at the time of the alleged offense, and the names and addresses of the witnesses upon with whom they intend to call to establish that defense. It also states that within 10 days after receipt of the defendant's notice of alibi, but in no event less than 10 days before the trial, unless the court otherwise directs, the prosecuting attorney shall serve upon to the defendant or his attorney a written notice stating the names and addresses of the witnesses upon whom they intend to rely upon or call to establish that the defendant's presence at the scene of the alleged offense and any other witnesses to be relied upon to rebut the testimony of the defendant's alibi witnesses, just the way it is. Now, Idaho is a little different. Everywhere I have ever practiced, the notice of alibi is usually due 35 days before trial. That's it. But you still have to provide the name, address, and phone number of anyone that you intend to call in that endorsement. But it's interesting that they, in Idaho, the prosecutors, are allowed to ask that up front, and normally there's no way that you can come up with that. Now, I can tell you, I don't think I've ever had an alibi defense. We've talked about this before. I've never had an alibi defense that worked. At trial, I don't think we've actually ever done it, because if it was totally rock solid, guess what? The defendant wouldn't be there. Now, a little more Bryan Kohberger news. Apparently, it's just coincidence, and that's what the Indiana law enforcement officials are saying in regards to those 2 traffic stops of Bryan Kohberger as his father as they traveled across country to the Kohberger home in Pennsylvania. They're saying no connection to the investigation as related to the murders, obviously, on November 13th. And as you may recall, he was pulled over twice within 10 minutes along Interstate 70 east of Indianapolis on December 15th. There were reports that law enforcement had been tracking the pair as they drove across country, and that the FBI requested that the Indiana police make these traffic stops, possibly to look at the suspect's hands. However, the FBI has denied those reports, and now, well, Indiana is as well. According to Indiana officials, both stops were routine drug interdiction checks. The first by a Sergeant Nick Ernest was simply part of his routine day. His only task was to seek out and stop vehicles to look for drug trafficking and other interstate criminal activity. They noted that Kohbergers were in a vehicle with Washington state license plates. So apparently, if you drive across Indianapolis, or Indiana, to be more accurate, you have United States plates, you are basically subject to being pulled over for drug trafficking. Good to know. Well, actually, they do that in just about every state. He apparently didn't see any of the typical indicators that would issue further investigation, like, hey, can I search your car? Which is what they oftentimes do. And so obviously he was given a verbal warning for following too closely. Now, the Indiana spokesperson declined to discuss the traffic stop or the drug department's interdiction program, but a police report on the incident indicated that Trooper Christopher Waltz, who made the second stop, reported noticing that the white Elantra following a semi-trailer too close at an unsafe distance. At the time of the stop, there was no other available information on Kohberger as a suspect in Idaho to include any identifying information or specific information related to the license plate. So, I think there's a lot of trust issue with police these days and whether they really tell the truth or not. I don't know, frankly, don't really care if the police pulled him over at the request of the FBI or not. Frankly, that's pretty plausible, and that's normally what you get to see in the discovery when somebody gets pulled over for interstate trafficking of some type. There's a bigger investigation going on. FBI is watching. They usually have GPS on the vehicle, something along those lines, and it's not a coincidence that they just happen to get pulled over for that following too closely type of situation. And if that happened, okay, great. If it didn't happen, okay, fine. But really, just to be pulling somebody over because they have out-of-state license plates, that's not reasonable suspicion. That's just harassment. So you use your best decision. Do you believe the police on this one or not? Let me know. Next, the Moscow Mule killer. Corey Richins, the Moscow Mule murderer. Obviously, we'll give her the presumption of innocence, but she appeared in court today. She asked for a bail hearing to determine whether she should be released from jail pending her actual trial date regarding the March 2022 death of her husband, Eric. Now, after Eric's death, Corey wrote a book titled Are You With Me?, which is a picture book that aspires to help children cope after the death of a loved one. And at one point after Eric's death, she went on a local TV program to promote the book and said that she wrote it alongside her 3 children after their father's death. Now, during the court proceedings today, Corey Richins appeared alongside her lawyer, Sky Lazaro. When officers read statements about attempting CPR on her husband, Richins began to cry. Now, Richins is charged with murder and drug possession. The mom of 3, later the self-published artist, as we talked about her angelic father, watching over the sons. The state called 3 witnesses for the hearing. The first was Detective Jeff O'Driscoll, who confirmed that Eric Richins' cause of death was due to fentanyl. The detective also said that the source of the information that led to Richins' arrest was the woman's friend, only identified as CL. That person supplied the drugs, per the detective. Now, prosecutors say in the pleadings that she slipped 5 times the legal dose of fentanyl into the Moscow Mule cocktail that she made for her loving husband. Apparently, they were having a little bit of a marital dispute over buying a multi-million-dollar mansion that she ultimately purchased as an investment property. Now, the attorneys for Ms. Richens have argued that the state's provided no evidence that there was fentanyl in the home, nor have they provided any evidence that Corey gave the fentanyl at issue. And Ms. Richens' attorney stated that Eric, as a partner who consumed alcohol and THC, so therefore he must be doing fentanyl as well, apparently. That's sarcasm, ladies and gentlemen. All right, law enforcement, the attorneys for Richens also said that they never investigated an alternative theory that perhaps Eric's alcohol and drug use had escalated. It was also revealed at the hearing by testimony from officers when they searched the computer of Richens that she had a couple of searches in her browser. For example, can police see if you've deleted texts? Can cops force you to take a lie detector? And how long do life insurance payouts take? Now, coincidentally, Richens also searched to find out how to commission someone to write a book, suggesting that her Now Are You With Me book may have been a ghostwritten book. And according to some, Corey allegedly used her personal devices to access an article titled Signs of Being Under Federal Investigation. We'll see how that goes. Well, needless to say, Ms. Richens did not get a bond. She will remain in custody. Not a great defense if that's what she's going for. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, some of those text messages, if they can be authenticated and the witness is going to say, yes, I sold the fentanyl pills, she's got a tough defense ahead. We'll give her the presumption of innocence. Going to be a tough one. Next, Daniel Penny speaks. Remember Daniel Penny? He's the guy that was charged with killing the homeless man by the name of Jordan Neely on the subway last month in New York. Well, he says he wasn't trying to choke him to death when he jumped into action after Neely threatened passengers. Now, Penny, the guy's only 24 years old, former Marine, is charged with manslaughter after he was caught on video restraining Neely. And the chokehold ultimately turned out to be fatal. Now, Neely died from compression of the neck, according to the medical examiner's office. And in a series of videos released by Penny's lawyer on Sunday, the 24-year-old East Village resident denied that he held Neely by his throat for 15 minutes, the way it's been reported. Mr. Penny says no way did he ever have an intention of taking anyone's life, and it was a scary situation. The man stumbled on the train. He appeared to be on drugs. The doors closed, and then he ripped off his jacket and threw it down, and people sitting next to me and to his left. Penny, who lived in the East Village, stated, I was listening to music at the time, and I took my headphones out to hear what he was yelling about. 3 main threats that he repeated over and over again were, I'm going to kill you, I'm prepared to go to jail for life, and I'm willing to die. Now, Penny, who's 6'2", noted that he was intimidated by Neely, who was actually larger than him, and he yelled in a terrified passenger's face. He said he couldn't sit still and potentially watched Neely carry out on his threats. Now, there's a common misconception that Marines don't get scared, he stated. We're actually taught one of our core values is courage, and courage is not the absence of fear, but how you handle fear, he said. He stated, I was scared for myself, but I looked around and there were women and children, and he was yelling in their faces, saying these threats. He couldn't just sit still. Now, video of that encounter went viral, and it shows Penny holding Neely in a chokehold on the floor of the subway until he stops moving. Some people say that I was holding on to Mr. Neely for 15 minutes. Mr. Penny says, no way, this is not true. Between stops is only a couple of minutes, so the whole interaction lasted less than 5 minutes. Some people say I was trying to choke him to death, which is not true. Penny stated he was simply trying to restrain him. And you can see from the video, there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicated that he was breathing. Penny stated, I'm not trying to restrain him from being able to carry out on those threats. That's it. Penny said the grip he used to hold Neely down based on the force that he was exerting. He said Neely never regained consciousness and was later pronounced dead. Now, Penny also stated that the altercation had nothing to do with race, as Mr. Neely was black, and he says he's not some sort of white supremacist, and he emphasized the notion that the incident was fueled by race is absolutely ridiculous. He said he didn't see a black man threatening passengers. He saw a man threatening passengers who were people of color. And at least 2 Strangers are also seeing the video of the incident helping Mr. Penny restrain Neely. The man who helped restrain Mr. Neely was a person of color. He pointed that out. And a few days after the incident, he stated that he read in the paper that a woman of color came out and called me a hero. We'll see how this case goes. This is one of those where I just don't think things should have been charged. Mr. Neely had a long history of mental health issues, and now some people are saying, well, he just slipped through the cracks of the New York's mental health system, and the Neely's family blamed authorities for not ensuring that he received enough care for him to recover, and called on Mr. Penny to face these murder charges. As you may recall, this incident also resulted in protests and many people being arrested. Penny is due back in court on July 17th of next month. Next on the docket, yes, the Trump indictment. Funny, I read through the indictment last week. I read it straight from the indictment, so people couldn't say I was summarizing, I was missing something. People were upset. It's also interesting that normally I'm accused of being pro-Trump. And yesterday or last week, I was accused of being anti-Trump because he was indicted. Okay? And I gave my perspective of that of a criminal defense attorney. I have had cases where the prosecutions have been politically motivated, but that's not a defense. Maybe jury nullification is a defense, but my perspective was given it as a criminal defense attorney. Mr. Trump has 37 counts. That is a tough number of counts to beat. The odds are that something would stick. Saying that's the way it is. It is in the hands of the jury at this point. Now, do I think that Donald Trump being indicted was politically motivated? Yes. Were these any other person than Donald Trump? Would they be charged? Probably not. But there are legitimate legal issues that need to be addressed in this case. Now, for those who don't recall, the indictment levels 37 charges against Mr. Trump that are related to the handling of classified documents, including his Mar-a-Lago club, since he left the White House. 31 of those counts are for violating the ancient and seldom ever enforced the Espionage Act for willful retention of national defense information. But it's striking and somewhat notable that the indictment never mentioned the Presidential Records Act that allows a president access to classified and unclassified documents once he leaves the office. It allows for good faith negotiations with the National Archives, and yet the indictment assumes that Mr. Trump had no right to take any of the classified documents. This doesn't fit with the spirit of the PRA, which Congress wrote to recognize that such documents had previously been the property of former presidents. And if the Espionage Act means presidents can't retain classified documents, then the PRA is a meaningless act. Certainly this will be a part of Mr. Trump's defense. Now, the other counts are related to failing to turn over documents or obstructing the attempts by the Justice Department and the FBI to obtain them. One allegation is that during the meeting with a writer and 3 others, none of whom held security clearances, Mr. Trump showed and described a plan of attack from the Department of Defense. Quote, as president, I could have declassified it, end quote, he said on audio tape. Now I can't, but this is still a secret. The feds also say that Mr. Trump tried to cover up his classified stash by suggesting that his attorneys hide or destroy the documents, as well as by telling an aide to move boxes to conceal them from his lawyers and the FBI. As usual, Mr. Trump is his own worst enemy in this particular case. And so we're going to talk about it like any other case. It's going to be one of the biggest criminal cases, not only of the year, but possibly the century. It goes against hundreds of years of legal precedent by not charging a president or former president for any sort of crime. And I know people are going to say Joe Biden should be charged as well. Well, no sitting president has ever been charged while they're in office. Could he be indicted and then when he's done with office, possibly proceed? He could. Is Hunter Biden going to be charged? Probably not. They being the Department of Justice, is going to run it out and then say, oh, we just missed the statute of limitations. And the Hillary Clinton stuff, I get it. It's frustrating. She's a horrible person. She's not going to get charged. So you got to get over it and you got to deal with reality. It's a political situation, but you have to deal with the legal consequences, which in theory could mean President Trump could go to prison if he was convicted. It's up to the jury. So it's probably going to offend some people and not others, and vice versa. But we're just going to give you the facts, and you decide what is the truth. And whether it's politically motivated or not, it doesn't matter at this point. It's in the legal system. And finally today, our dumb criminal of the day. A Florida family was a little surprised when they had some unexpected company. That's right. According to police, the Lee County Sheriff's Office specifically, deputies responded to a home in Fort Myers on a disturbance call on May 31st about 7:15 p.m. The homeowner, a guy by the name of Bryan Kohberger, reported that he was sitting down to dinner when his two teenage stepdaughters when he heard someone walk through the front door. Now, he had some workers doing some tree trimming outside, so he just assumed it was one of them coming in to use the restroom or give an update on the work to be done. But when he looked closely at the individual, he realized that the person wasn't a worker, and he was barefoot, shirtless, wearing only red swim trunks. And when McCaslin asked the subject what he was doing in the home, the unidentified man answered, "I'm a ghost. You don't see me," said the man. Needless to say, he was a little shocked when Mr. McCaslin said that he could actually see him. He thought he was walking around and nobody could see him. Clearly. Well, Mr. McCaslin told the intruder he had to leave and positioned himself between the unidentified man, the ghost, and his stepdaughters, and the person ultimately left the house. Police responded, and this guy was just randomly outside on the porch and opened the door. The tree trimmers told the deputies that the individual then entered into one of their work trucks that was parked in the driveway, apparently completely invisible, obviously. And after they chased him off, the shirtless man then departed on foot in a known direction. Mr. McCaslin wanted charges pressed against the man, but hopes that he gets the help that he needs. So, unidentified man, you're not a ghost. We can see you. Good luck. Anyway, you're a dumb criminal of the day. All right. Hope we didn't offend too many of everyone out there. One way or the other. It's always interesting when we talk about President Trump. You're either pro-Trump, you're anti-Trump, and everybody hates you. Must be calling it right if everybody's getting mad at me. All right. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.